Hey my friends, today we're going to check out Ka-Bar's new flipper knife, the Mach 98. Let's get into it. Alrighty, so the Mach 98 is part of Ka-Bar's numbered line. So you think they've got some other folders like the Jaros folder, and they've got the Dozier folding hunter, which is a big hit for them. This is actually numbered like their USMC knives, their Mach, what was it, the Mach 1 Navy knife. This is the Mach 98 flipping knife. I was really interested to see this included as like part of their main series because unlike I'd say the rest of that main series or most of that main series, this is a China knife through and through. Not that that's a bad thing, but I'll get into how China it is later on. At any rate, looking at it from the very basic of basics, we've got a 3.5-inch blade that is definitely on the larger, sort of thicker, more robust side. We've got a G10 handle that has got some 3D finishing on the G10 in this menagerie of browns, as they've chosen to put it, but it kind of goes with the chic and the style of Ka-Bar's, brown leather stacked handles and all that sort of thing. I can see why they chose to get the maker to use these. The blade is sort of coated with a pretty thin coating of like a standard knife coating. Like I don't know the proper word for it. It's not DLC. It's just a sort of just a Teflon style stuff that'll probably come off relatively quickly if you were to use it a lot every day, but just through EDC use, probably not much at all. So it's a flipper knife, and inside the knife you'll see two full stainless steel liners, the knife being held together by a T9 and three T6s, I believe, or T7s, I can't remember. And then it's got full on all the way through construction because they're using standoffs rather than a big thick backspacer or something like that. So it's a flipper knife on Teflon washers. They're pretty thick, pretty decent quality sort of plastic or Teflon style washers. They might just be plastic. I didn't have my plastic or Teflon testing kit handy when I opened the knife up. But yeah, definitely on the lower cost side of things. The pocket clip is reversible and it is super shallow carry either way that you do it, which is kind of what you expect in a lot of really first knives or cheap knives or market entry knives, so to speak. This knife is either going to snag you with its design or not at all, I believe, because it does have a very Ka-Bar style blade. Obviously, that Troy or the Fuller that is reminiscent of their USMC fixed blade is present and is definitely what makes this knife unique out of everything else, because apart from that, it's just very much a spear / drop point knife and on a very much China-made knife handle. And I'm saying that because this reminds me so much of those GearBest style knives that you can get, like the Y-Starts and the Ganzos and that sort of thing. It's really, really similar when you feel it and when you touch it. And even the powder coating inside, all very, very reminiscent of the same. It's probably made by Sanremny or one of those type of companies that makes, all of those sorts of random Banggood GearBest style knives. So it really does feel a lot like one of them. Furthering the China-ness of it, it's made of 8 CR15 MOV steel. So 8CR15, no, not even 8CR, 5, I misspoke, 5 CR15 MOV steel. So that is, well, it's the equivalent of like the surgical stainless that, and some even, in some sources it's actually very similar to the 4116 steel. However, it's just not on this knife. It's much too soft. It's I did my cut test of it. As you can see, maybe, I've used it since, and I've done my cut testing. I've gone and put a mirror edge, a really, really nice edge on this knife, because I wanted to give it a fighting chance for all the EDC use and testing. I did my rope cutting test, and after 70 cuts, the knife was no longer reliably slicing paper, and was actually fairly dull. I pushed it across to 80 cuts, because I wanted to see how far it would go. And usually when I stop with the paper cutting, the knife's still got a pretty decent working edge on the part that I was using. This is actually quite dull. So for a polished edge to go dull pretty quickly, it's pretty soft stuff, folks. It really is. So there you go. Yeah, and in terms of use and other things regarding the blade, it's a pretty fat blade, but if you have a really, really sharp edge on it, then you can get it to do some really good fine work for you. No worries at all. It's definitely made towards being hard use, probably towards prying. They've left the liners as full, it's got a fair bit of girth and robustness to the whole thing. So maybe it is a really hard working knife, and that's where they're going. But yeah, with my polished edge, I could get good slicing performance out of it, but it was also quite quick to dull because it's 5CR15 MOV steel, and it's definitely on the softer side. So it should be a nice stainless steel. It shouldn't stain too easily, but yeah, pretty unremarkable stuff. Pretty much, yeah, it's very much on the line between just brandless stainless steel and actually cutlery steel that's intended for knives. So it's a bit of a disappointment. It's just so funny to me that Ka-Bar have chosen to make their first folding knife that is numbered in their main series just such a China knife. And again, it's not a bad thing. It's an original design, at least. Like, they've obviously made, they've licensed out this blade shape to, they've given the company they've contracted the company to make it for them, however you'd put it. It's just really a really interesting thing, because I think they've got some successful other knives that are made in Taiwan, which are the Jarros and the Folding Hunters, and it just interests me why they didn't either get that same factory to make this, or pull it across and make it like a really hard use knife. And it's probably just a risk reward thing, I guess. Make a really nice hard use sort of zero tolerance style knife with Ka-Bar features in America. That would have been a real hit. So a bit of a mystifying choice to me overall. Look, in terms of ergonomics, it's not too bad. The handle is fairly comfortable to hold, and it's when it's in your hand and when you're cutting with it, it's actually fine. It's got the imperfections that these knives will have. It came with a really bad heel. This isn't from me sharpening. This is how the knife came. I'll show you a stock slide of it now. So a really bad heel on the knife there, and the pocket clip is just so darn shallow. Regardless of whether you switch up or down, it's just more comfortable in the hand with it tipped down. So there you go. That's kind of how I've chosen to keep it. But yeah, it's a moderately comfortable knife to use. It's actually a fine knife to hold and use for a good long while, providing the steel isn't going to go dull on you while you're doing it. The flipping action, not very good. Those washers will mean you have to give it some wrist. I haven't found a way of being able to preload it or anything on this one to get it to fully lock. I can get it to almost meet the mark, but not to actually fling open and lock. So, but that's just Teflon washers, man. That's you need some real good expertise to do a Teflon flipper that you don't have to give a little bit of flick to. So, yeah, there it is. So yeah, what a strange one. What a strange old choice from Ka-Bar. Like they seem to me to be such a America company, and yeah, I'm fine with China. It just mystifies me, that's all, because it really does feel like something that, if not for this blade shape, it just feels like a knife that they might make for, San Renmi might make for Boca, or for, Weistad, or for, one of those numerous other sort of knives or something brands that are sort of everywhere on those thrift sites, So, what else do I have to say about this? Yeah, the lockup is solid. It's overall a solidly built. Now, most of those Chinese knives actually are. They're solidly built, as in they're not gonna have blade play and wobble and really amateurish gas station stuff. But yeah, they just don't go that extra level of niceness in terms of steels, actions, pocket clips. Always with these pocket clips, I mean, I'm lucky it even has one. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to show this next to some other knives to start with. So what are we next to? The Paramilitary 2, for example. What are we? The Buck Marksman, next to a couple of other knives of similar size. Spyderco Delica. What else do we have? Yeah, just some other of my knives on stock. You can see, hopefully that gives you some idea of the general size of it. It's quite a heavy knife because it's got no skeletonized liners, and they're full, quite thick stainless steel liners, weighing in at about 145 grams, which is, a little bit more than the Paramilitary 2, or, a fair bit more than, say, a Delica. But yeah, it's kind of a big, heavy old hard use knife that I guess could function in that capacity if you didn't mind it going quite dull quite quickly. So there you go. Lord knows how long it'd last without a really nice edge on it. I just thought I'd give it the best head start I could. So there we are. All right, guys. To me, it's $30 in Australia. So that's a really cheap knife in Australia. And that's a good probably $15 less than, say, a Kershaw Atmos, which is probably my favorite cheap knife. It's kind of looking at about the same price as the Ontario Wraith I reviewed earlier, which is much less knife, but I think I did prefer the Wraith to this. This just seems like it, I don't know, I've said it over and over again. It just seems like it's really surprising to see Ka-Bar's brand on it. It just seems like something that would come out on the Boca Magnum line or something like that, At any rate, hope this has been of some interest to you. There isn't too much going around this knife at the moment, so if you've got $30 and you want a car knife to stick in your glove box, put a good edge on it and forget about it, you know, you're not going to go too far wrong with this. But for everyday carry, I think you're going to be left a little bit disappointed or a little bit underwhelmed. That's all. Cool. I'll catch you all in the next one, guys. Goodbye.